He had no family, no friends, just a crumpled hospital gown, and the echo of his own fear. Then she walked in. What happened next? Stay tuned for a story that will make you believe in second chances. But first, hit subscribe, like this video, and turn on notifications. Stories like this? They're why we're here. The collapse. The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's emergency room buzzed like a trapped insect, casting a sterile glow over the rows of plastic chairs and the occasional cough or murmur of exhaustion. The air smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee, the kind of place where time stretched thin and fear hung thick. Ethan Cole, a 34-year-old freelance graphic designer with perpetually tired eyes, sat slumped in a corner, his fingers pressing into his temples like he could physically push the pain away. His migraine had started as a dull throb during his morning coffee, but by noon, it was a jackhammer against his skull. He'd ignored it like always, pushed through deadlines, ignored the nausea, until his vision splintered into jagged white lines at his desk. The next thing he knew, his co-worker Marco was shouting his name, and someone was calling 911. Now here he was, alone. The nurse had handed him a thin hospital gown and pointed him to a curtained-off bed. No one had asked for emergency contact. No one had needed to. Ethan's phone sat dark in his hand. He could call someone. His ex, maybe, but Rachel had moved to Portland last year, and the last time they'd spoken, it had been about finalizing the divorce papers. His parents were gone, car accident 5 years back, and his few friends were the kind you grab beers with, not the kind you dragged into your medical emergencies. A doctor with a harried expression pulled back the curtain, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Cole? We've got your blood work back, but we need to run a few more tests." Ethan swallowed. More tests. The doctor's voice was careful, measured. "Your symptoms, the migraines, the dizziness, could be a few things. We'd like to rule out anything structural." A cold weight settled in Ethan's gut. "You think it's a tumor? Let's not jump to conclusions." The doctor's smile was thin. "We'll schedule an MRI for tonight." The curtain swished shut. Ethan stared at the ceiling, the panic rising like a tide. He was supposed to have more time. He was supposed to figure things out first, get his life together, maybe meet someone, stop eating takeout over the sink like a college kid. Not this. Not alone in a hospital with some unspoken threat hanging over him. His breath came too fast. The machines around him beeped, a relentless reminder of everything he couldn't control. He gripped the bed railing, knuckles white. "I can't do this alone," he whispered. Then movement. A shadow crossed the foot of his bed. Ethan blinked, expecting another nurse. Instead, a woman stood there, her presence oddly commanding despite the quiet way she'd appeared. She was older, maybe in her 60s, with silver-streaked hair pulled into an elegant twist. Her coat looked expensive, the kind of thing you'd see in a magazine, but her eyes were what caught him, sharp, assessing, but not unkind. Without a word, she sat in the chair beside him. Ethan opened his mouth, but she spoke first. "You look like you could use a distraction," she said. Her voice was calm, the kind of tone that suggested she'd weathered worse storms than this. Ethan exhaled, half a laugh, half disbelief. "I don't even know you." "Eleanor," she said. "And now you do." For the first time that night, the weight in his chest eased just a little. Something was about to change. The unexpected companion. The rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor filled the sterile hospital room as Ethan studied the mysterious woman who had appeared at his bedside. Eleanor van der Linde carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to command, yet there was a softness in her eyes that contradicted her polished exterior. Her hands, though elegantly manicured, showed the faintest tremor as they folded in her lap. "You're not what I expected," Ethan admitted, his voice hoarse from hours of silence. Eleanor arched an eyebrow. "And what exactly were you expecting?" "Honestly, a doctor telling me I'm dying. Or maybe a social worker offering pamphlets about coping with illness." He attempted a weak smile that didn't reach his eyes. A shadow passed across Eleanor's face. "I've received both of those visits myself. Neither is particularly helpful in the moment." She reached into her designer handbag and produced a silver flask. "What you need right now is something considerably stronger than hospital coffee." Ethan blinked as she unscrewed the cap and poured a generous measure of amber, liquid, into the plastic water cup on his bedside table. The rich aroma of aged whiskey cut through the antiseptic hospital smell. "Isn't drinking against hospital policy. So is bribing orderlies for better blankets, but I've found both to be essential survival tactics." Eleanor's lips quirked in what might have been a smile. "Consider it medicinal." The whiskey burned going down, but warmth spread through Ethan's chest, loosening the knot of fear that had been tightening since the doctor mentioned additional tests. He studied Eleanor more carefully now, the fine lines around her eyes that spoke of both laughter and sorrow, the single strand of pearls at her throat that looked both elegant and oddly vulnerable. "You still haven't told me why you're really here," Ethan pressed. Eleanor's gaze drifted to the window, where rain had begun streaking the glass. 2 years ago, I sat where you're sitting now. Different hospital, different diagnosis, but the same crushing loneliness. She turned back to him, her eyes suddenly fierce. My husband held my hand through 12 hours of tests before they found the brain aneurysm. The doctors said I was lucky, 1 in a million to survive without surgery. Ethan felt the weight of her unspoken words. But your husband never made it to his own diagnosis 6 months later. Eleanor's voice didn't waver, but her fingers tightened around the flask. The irony is almost poetic, isn't it? The healthy one dies of pancreatic cancer, while the one with the time bomb in her head goes on living. A nurse bustled in to check Ethan's casting a suspicious glance at the cups, but saying nothing. When they were alone again, Eleanor surprised him by reaching for his chart. "Let me see what they're working with here," she muttered, scanning the pages with the practiced eye of someone who'd spent too much time in hospitals. "You a doctor now, too?" "Better. I'm a billionaire with connections at every research hospital on the East Coast." She snapped the chart shut. "Your doctor is competent but cautious. The MRI is just to rule out worst-case scenarios." Ethan swallowed hard. "And if it's not the best-case scenario?" Eleanor's expression softened. "Then you'll have someone who's been through hell and back sitting right here beside you." She poured another measure of whiskey. "But let's not borrow trouble before we have to. Right now, you need to eat something before they pump you full of contrast dye." With a quick text message, Eleanor summoned a gourmet meal that put the hospital's gelatin desserts to shame. As Ethan picked at roasted chicken and truffle mashed potatoes, he realized something startling. For the first time since collapsing at work, he wasn't thinking about test results or mortality. The MRI technician arrived with a wheelchair. As Ethan transferred into it, Eleanor placed a hand on his shoulder. "Remember," she said quietly, "no matter what they find in there, you're not facing it alone anymore." The words settled over Ethan like armor as he was wheeled down the fluorescent-lit hallway, the whiskey warmth in his stomach, and an unexpected hope blooming in his chest. For the first time in years, someone had looked at him and truly seen him. Not just another patient, not just another lonely soul, but someone worth fighting for. And that changed everything. The bargain. The MRI machine's rhythmic thumping had felt like a countdown, each click and were marking another second toward whatever future awaited him. When the technicians finally wheeled Ethan back to his room, his stomach was a tight knot of dread. Eleanor was exactly where she'd promised to be, though now she stood by the window, her silhouette framed against the Chicago skyline. She turned when he entered, her expression unreadable. "Well," Ethan croaked, his throat dry. She crossed the room in 3 strides and handed him a fresh cup of water. "The radiologist is reviewing the scans now. But I pulled some strings. We should have answers within the hour." Ethan's fingers trembled around the cup. "You can do that." A ghost of a smile touched Eleanor's lips. "Money doesn't buy happiness, but it does buy efficiency." She studied him for a long moment before sighing. "You look like hell." "Thanks. I feel worse." Eleanor reached into her bag again, this time producing a small velvet box. "Here. Open it." Ethan frowned but complied. Inside sat a simple silver pendant on a chain, its surface etched with an intricate pattern. "It's a St. Christopher medal," Eleanor explained. "My husband carried it through every business meeting, every doctor's visit. Silly superstition, but—" She shrugged. "It brought him peace. I want you to have it." Ethan's throat tightened. "I can't accept this." "You can and you will." Her tone brooked no argument. "Consider it collateral." "Collateral for what?" Eleanor sat on the edge of his bed, her gaze suddenly intense. "I have a proposition for you, Ethan Cole. If those scans come back clean, and I believe they will, I want you to come work for me." Ethan nearly choked on his water. "Doing what?" "Rebuilding the Southside Community Center. My husband founded it 20 years ago. It's fallen into disrepair since he's been gone." A shadow crossed her face. "I need someone with your skills, your eye for design, your ability to see possibilities where others see problems." Ethan stared at her. "You don't even know me." "I know enough. Eleanor leaned forward. I know you've been surviving when you should be thriving. I know you're talented. I had Marco email me your portfolio while you were in MRI. You what? Don't look so shocked. Did you think I'd make this offer blindly? She arched an eyebrow. The position includes full medical coverage, by the way. And before you ask, no, this isn't charity. It's an investment. Ethan's mind reeled. The rational part of him screamed this was too good to be true. But another part, the part that had been drowning in loneliness and fear, whispered that maybe, just maybe, this was the lifeline he'd been waiting for. Before he could respond, the door swung open. Dr. Patel entered, clipboard in hand, her expression carefully neutral. Mr. Cole, she began, then glanced at Eleanor. I see you've already got counsel. Ethan's heart pounded against his ribs. Just tell me. The doctor smiled. Good news. No tumors, no structural abnormalities. Just a severe migraine disorder exacerbated by stress and dehydration. The relief hit Ethan like a physical wave. His vision blurred as the tension drained from his body. Eleanor squeezed his shoulder. Told you, she murmured. Dr. Patel continued, we'll get you some fluids and proper medication, but you should be able to go home tonight. When the doctor left, Ethan turned to Eleanor, the Street Christopher medal cool in his palm. You were awfully confident about those results. I've learned to trust my instincts. She stood, straightening her coat. Now about my offer. Ethan exhaled slowly. Why me? Really? Eleanor's gaze softened. Because when I walked past your room earlier, I saw myself 20 years ago, terrified, alone, convinced no one cared. My husband gave me a chance when I needed it most. She touched the pendant around her own neck, its twin to the one she'd given him. Consider this paying it forward. The weight of her words settled over Ethan. For the first time in years, the future didn't seem like something to dread, but something to meet head-on. He slipped the chain over his head, the metal warm against his skin. When do I start? Eleanor's smile could have lit up the entire hospital. Tomorrow. I'll send a car at 9. And Ethan. She paused at the door. Welcome to the family. As the door clicked shut behind her, Ethan leaned back against his pillows, the pendant resting over his heart. Outside, the Chicago skyline glittered, endless possibilities stretching before him. For the first time in a very long time, he couldn't wait to see what tomorrow would bring. A new beginning. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Eleanor Van Derlen's downtown office, casting golden patterns across the mahogany desk where Ethan sat clutching a steaming cup of coffee. 6 months had passed since that fateful night in the ER, yet he still caught himself touching the Street Christopher medal beneath his shirt, a silent reminder of how drastically his life had changed. Across from him, Eleanor reviewed the final blueprints for the renovated Southside Community Center, her reading glasses perched on the tip of her nose. You've outdone yourself, Ethan, she said, tracing a finger along the architectural drawings. The children's art studio was a brilliant addition. Ethan smiled, remembering the long nights spent perfecting those plans. What had begun as a temporary job had become his passion, the center's transformation mirroring his own. Wait until you see it in person. The mural the kids painted last week? It's breathtaking. A knock at the door interrupted them. Marco, Ethan's former co-worker, and now his lead contractor, poked his head in. Boss, they're ready for you downstairs. Eleanor stood, smoothing her tailored blazer. Shall we? The community center buzzed with energy as they entered. Where once there had been peeling paint and broken furniture, now bright colors and modern designs welcomed visitors. Children laughed in the new play area, while local artists taught workshops in sunlit studios. The air smelled of fresh paint and possibility. Ethan's throat tightened as he took it all in. This was why he'd survived that migraine, why Eleanor had walked into his hospital room that night. A young girl with braids tugged at his sleeve. Mr. Ethan, come see my painting. Eleanor nudged him forward. Go. This is your moment, too. As Ethan admired the child's vibrant artwork, he noticed Eleanor across the room, quietly observing the scene with glistening eyes. He remembered what she'd told him weeks ago, that this center had been her husband's greatest pride. Now it thrived again, a living memorial. Later, as the celebration wound down, Eleanor joined Ethan on the center's new terrace overlooking the city. The sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and purple. You've given me more than a job, Ethan said quietly. You've given me purpose. Eleanor smiled, the fading lights softening her features. No, Ethan, you found that yourself. I just gave you the space to remember who you were. She reached into her pocket and produced a small envelope, which is why I want you to have this. Inside was a deed, the center, now legally, under his direction. Ethan's hands shook. I can't accept this. You already have. Eleanor's voice was firm but kind. This place needs someone with your vision, your heart. My part in its story is done. The weight of her trust settled over him, not as a burden, but as an honor. In that moment, Ethan understood what true generosity looked like, not just the giving of money, but the gift of belief in someone's potential. As they stood watching the first stars appear, the sounds of children's laughter still floating through the open windows, Ethan knew this wasn't an ending, but another beginning. Stories like Ethan's remind us that our darkest moments can lead to our brightest chapters. If this inspired you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs hope today. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life tales of transformation. Because everyone deserves their second chance, you just have to be open to receiving it.